Flaming spokesqueer for the Olympics, Thomas Jolly, has issued an apology for an opening ceremony display in which drag queens ridiculed Leonardo da Vinci's famous depiction of Jesus Christ's Last Supper. Jolly, who is gay, which also means Jolly, who is totally gay, said in his apology, quote, "I want to sincerely apologize to any far-right turds who are still stupid enough to believe in God and therefore may have felt all grumpy and offended when we spit on everything they hold dear. By way of making amends, let me explain to you ignorant buffoons that the drag queen imitation of the Last Supper was not a drag queen imitation of the Last Supper, but instead was a tribute to the Greek god of wine, Dionysus, and was simply meant as a celebration of the fact of our being alive, because we had drag queens imitate the Last Supper instead of mocking Muslims who would have stopped us from being alive by throwing us off a roof," unquote. Flaming spokesqueer Gay Jolly later amended his apology to say, quote, "Okay, it had nothing to do with Dionysus, and we were mocking the Last Supper, but it was still a celebration of being alive because we were too chicken to mock Muslims," unquote. Now, on a personal note, it may be true that some touchy, small-minded Christians were put out by having one of the most solemn moments in a faith centered on truth and morality ridiculed by a bunch of men in falsies and lipstick, interrupting a life of self-degradation and the corruption of children in order to pervert a magnificent Christian work of art by turning it from a thing of beauty into a barely watchable display of homosexual narcissism. However, I take a broader view. When it comes to the Olympics, I know that dedicated young people have worked their hearts out with uncanny discipline and commitment in order to perform stunning feats of athletics that absolutely no one cares about. For 2 weeks, all over the world, people gaze in amazement at their television sets and think, is there really nothing more interesting on? Like reruns of Here Comes Honey Boo Boo or Australia's Naughtiest Videos? And of course, I'm generalizing here, so please don't write in and say you're offended. Obviously, beach volleyball can be tolerable if the girls are really built. And Australia's Naughtiest Videos actually had some good episodes too. But for those of us who have standards or good taste or are sentient, the Olympics is like watching paint dry after it's done a bunch of somersaults on the parallel bars and a group of corrupt foreigners hold up signs giving it a completely arbitrary score before awarding their country a gold medal for best drying paint. And normally, I and other people with sex lives don't think about the Olympics at all, except to wish that it was over, because that would mean it's almost football season. But all that changed this year because of flaming spokesqueer Gay Jolly's mockery of a religion he won't be able to comprehend until he stands before the throne of God, wondering if the old Dionysus excuse will get him out of the eternal punishment he so richly deserves. But now, I can not watch the Olympics with a real sense of accomplishment. Instead of simply taking a walk or maybe reading a book to learn more about the brilliant artistry and symbolism of Da Vinci's masterpiece so I can understand just how beautiful a work Flaming Gay Jolly was mocking when he managed to mix shallowness with cowardice by simultaneously snickering at the God who loves him while kowtowing to the God who would happily toss him off a roof. Where was I going with this sentence? Oh yeah, instead of just ignoring the whole thing by not watching it, I can not watch it with a new purpose and gusto, feeling that my natural unwillingness to be bored to death by people doing somersaults for some reason has been given fresh meaning by my deep desire to tell Flaming Gay Jolly that it would have been much better if he had actually participated in this year's Olympic events by taking a flying jump. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. All right, we're back, laughing our way through the end of Western civilization. Let me start off by asking you to become a member, because as a Daily Wire Plus member, you get uncensored, unfiltered, ad-free shows, the real-time breaking news alerts, and more. Join the fight now at dailywire.com/subscribe. And also, we need the money. Also, if you want to react to the show, write to Klavan Klapbacks at dailywire.com. Klavan Klapbacks, both spelled with a K, Klavan and Klapbacks at dailywire.com. And you can agree with us or you can say something true, and we will read that on the air, and I'll try to answer as best I can. We've got a really good one today about reading the Bible. You hang around. It'll be interesting, and please write in. Also, one last ad I just want to put in here. A Woman Underground is my new Cameron Winter mystery, the fourth in the series. I'm coming down the home stretch of the fifth one, which is the last one I have a contract for, so please pre-order this if you like the series. People have just loved this series. All 3 books have been USA Today bestsellers. So please order this one, and I think you will really find it an interesting read and just a fun read as well. Also, of course, you want to listen to our interviews. Last week we had Megan Basham on. We're still being bashed for Megan Basham because she told the truth about evangelical corruption in her book. And this week we're going to talk to Maureen Callahan on her book, Ask Not, The Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed, which was attacked in the New York Times also for telling the truth. And finally, leave a comment wherever you want. You can paint it on the walls of a school. You can write it on the back of a policeman. And if it is, appropriately hateful and disgusting, we will read it on the air because that's the way we roll. Today's comment is from Alexander Schroeder 777, and he did actually write this on the back of the policeman, so the police want to know he's at 777. As he says, as a married man with children, I say, and I say it without hesitation, Klavan is the most handsome DailyWire dude. Now, we get things like this a lot, and I don't want you to worry about it. Doesn't mean you're gay. You're a little gay, but, it's okay. A lot of guys have that, feeling about me. Let's just get from there into today's episode, Mean Girl Nation. Now, in a 1991 Lawrence Kasdan movie called Grand Canyon, it had this line from Steve Martin, who was playing an aging movie producer. This is cut 1.
That's part of your problem, you haven't seen enough movies. All of life's riddles are answered in the movies.
Now, I always remembered this line because there's a lot of truth to it, especially if you go beyond just the movies and talk about the arts. A lot of life's questions are answered in the arts if you read the arts properly. Now, the arts are in a slump right now because wokeness is all a lie and you can't produce anything true out of it. So everything is just garbage because no one can speak the truth about anything. And the only right-winger crazy enough and talented enough to produce truly original and offbeat stuff is me. So get a woman underground, and you won't have me to kick around much longer. So right now we're in a slump. But luckily, the arts don't always say what their creators want them to say, because if a work of art is good, it will tell the truth, whether the artist is an honest person or not. So today we're going to take a look. We're going to take Steve Martin's advice, and we're going to take a look at 4 movies that tell us a lot about what's going on in America as we approach the next election. While many people have told me I don't look a day over 150, I've been informed on the importance of making sure I'm staying on top of my health in my middle years, because I'm planning to live to 300. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and vegetables every day. That sounds miserable and time-consuming. But with Balance of Nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and vegetables every day. Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, they freeze dry them, turn them into a powder, and then put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day. I do. And then your body knows what to do with them. Go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Klavan for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Plus, get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Klavan. Who takes these things every day? Klavan. Let's start with Chapter 1, Bird Box.
Listen to me. I'm only going to say this once. We are going on the trip now. It's going to be rough. It's going to be hard to stay alert. It's going to be even harder to be quiet, but you have to do both.
28, 29, 30. Okay, it's flat. 31, 32.
You have to do every single thing I say, or we will not make it. Understand? Under no circumstance are you allowed to take off your blindfold.
Okay, so Bird Box is 2018 Sandra Bullock film. It's based on a very good horror novel by a guy named Josh Malerman, same title. Really gripping book with good characters, and the movie's good too. It's an apocalyptic story when our world gets infested with entities and we don't even know what they are, but if you look at them, you go mad and you probably end up killing yourself. And Sandra Bullock is a mom who has to get her 2 children to safety wearing blindfolds because you cannot look at these things. They drive you crazy. It's a film about the idea that the poet William Blake said, you become what you behold. You become what you behold. What you look at is what you become, which is actually a biblical idea. It's in Corinthians. And it's the idea that you see God's glory and you then start to become like unto God, more like God's glory. But this is also the bad version of this. It may be demons who are out there. It may be aliens. We don't know what's out there, entities that drive us mad when you look at them. This represents the news media, right? The news media has put a lot of effort into making us into the image of itself. We become what we behold. And the news media puts energy into turning us, even though we disagree with them, even though we know what they are, it doesn't matter. They want to turn us and make us as divisive, as unfair, as angry, and dishonest and corrupt as they are. Now, we're seeing this in spades right now in this sudden turnaround about Kamala Harris. Remember when Kamala Harris was first picked by Joe Biden, the media was afraid that this was a bad pick that was going to stop him from beating Donald Trump. And this is what the media sounded like then. This is cut 5.
There are reports that say that you have the lowest approval rating of any vice president.
Well, there are polls that also say I have great approval ratings.
Swing voters don't like Harris. How big a drag is Kamala Harris on the ticket?
She's a pretty big drag. I think she was arguably Biden's worst political decision.
They don't like her. There's lots of reasons they don't like her.
Kamala Harris's approval rating is now at 28%, which is an historic low for any modern vice president.
We're hearing it from mainstream media, one outlet after another, one leak after another. That Kamala Harris is the worst vice president ever, the worst politician ever.
We don't see the vice president. What people are saying to me, and I'm sure they're saying it to you, where's the vice president? Some White House officials are feeling that she came off looking unprepared for inevitable questions about when she might visit the southern border.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
So they just absolutely savaged her because they thought she was dragging Biden down. Now they are desperate to draw across the finish line in the next 100 days, and they have completely changed their tone. This is some of the same people, cut 6.
We spent 3 weeks sitting outside the ICU with a death watch for democracy. One little heartbeat of hope. Kamala Harris raising her hand and saying, I'll take care of this.
That is the type of grassroots mobilization and engagement that does remind me of Barack Obama.
Recognize what Vice President Kamala Harris has been able to accomplish in less than 1 week. A thunderous crescendo rumbling its way across every corner of American political and civic and cultural life. The crown jewel of endorsements for any Democrat. President Barack Obama officially endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris.
They're so excited. They're just so excited.
That's Joe Scarborough, who is so excited because senile Joe Biden was the best Joe Biden. He just moves from one lie to the next. They all do. They just move from one lie to the next. And it makes us furious, right? Because it surrounds us. It's all around us. We know that people buy into it. It makes us crazy. And we start to say things like, we should play as dirty as they do. They lie. We should lie. They want to. You become what you behold. It's Bird Box. They drive you crazy and they turn you into something self-destructive, namely the image of them. And it's even worse than this because this is kind of direct lying, but they do this thing that I've now come to call atmospherics, where they set an atmosphere of an intellectual air that we breathe that changes us into the perfect customers for them. So take debates. I talked about this back when the holy crap debate took place. Debates used to be Lincoln Douglas, Nixon Kennedy, 2 people discussing policy at length as they wanted to present their case to the people. And it also tested them on the floor live. It tested how they looked and how they presented themselves, but it was also about their ideas. Now you see it. They had 2 minutes to speak on the deepest possible and most complex possible policy ideas. They're moderated so that the news people now become attack dogs against the Republicans. We hear endlessly about any got you one-liners that some writer gave them to say. If they get off that one-liner and the audience likes it, then that's all we hear about for the Because those are the things that the media can sell you. They know you will buy into those things, and they want to turn you into their audience, which is an audience of shallow people who can be led along by the latest sensational remark that somebody made, may be taken out of context. I saw this in Hollywood. I've talked about this before. I saw in Hollywood that there'll be a great original new film like The Matrix or Terminator, and they'll look at it and say, now we have to make a sequel because we made so much money. What did people like about this? Oh, The Matrix, they like the slow motion action. So the next film would just have so much slow motion action. You'll hear every bullet drop from the first. And they forget the fact that they had a really original idea that will never be duplicated that actually was excellent the first time out. Same with Terminator. Everybody says Terminator 2, the special effects. That's all they gave you in Terminator 2. The first Terminator is an original movie in which every single line almost is quotable and memorable. It's really remarkable. So they cheapen it by giving you what they know the audience will show up for, the cheapest, lowest common denominator thing they know. So now Trump courageously goes before a group of black journalists and talks to them, and they're savage. They just are insulting, and they treat him like garbage. And he just starts to say the kinds of things that Trump says. Here he's talking about Kamala. This is cut 11.
You believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
The base loves this because he's not playing by their rules, because he does not let them turn him into them. But of course, this is front page news. But first of all, it's true. I mean, here's Kamala on an Indian cooking show, cut 7.
What we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that. But I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian.
Yes.
But actually, we're both South Indian.
Yes.
All right. And then she goes, a couple of days ago, she went to Atlanta, and suddenly she becomes black. There's cut 8.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
We're going to do it again, 2024. So he's absolutely right about her. It's complete nonsense. But the bigger question that we do not stop to ask ourselves is who gives a rat's ass? Or as Andrew Breitbart used to brilliantly say, so what? He used to say two most powerful words in the English language, so what? Trump and Biden and Harris are all, let's say, less than perfect human beings. The only difference is that Trump's imperfections offend the left, who, being the bird box, set the standards, the mad standards of our time to drive us insane. Donald Trump has policies, and Kamala Harris has policies, and the situation, here's the situation. Joe Biden was an old-fashioned Democrat used to mask the far left of the current Democrat Party. Kamala is a leftist. She will be all in on the far left of the Democrat Party and could take the party further left with her. And this is what they're trying to hide. This is what they're telling us doesn't exist or has changed or somehow it's just Republicans pouncing. Here's an ad that was made by Dave McCormick, who's running for Senate in Pennsylvania, showing the true face of Kamala Harris, cut 15.
We're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
What is the solution for voters in the fossil fuel industry?
Giving the workers an ability to transition.
Abolish ICE.
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
It is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street.
People who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
For people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it.
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on. I'm opposed to any policy that would deny any human being public health, period.
So they want you to care about slips and goofs and faux pas, and especially with Trump, who just mouths off all the time and sometimes says things that are inappropriate, sometimes not, sometimes just the simple truth. They want you to care about that, so you don't care about the thing that matters, which is the policy. Because remember, the president is just one man. We have this huge government that is constantly churning, that is supposed to be guided by the president's policies and by his point of view. And Trump had to fight like a dog, like a tiger, to get any of it past this deep state that was there, the resistance, quote unquote resistance, with the press, which supports the power. The press is now on the side of power. It used to be on the side of the governed. Now it's on the side of the governors. The more governors, the better as far as they're concerned. So they want you to not care. And it kind of works because they entice us to fight back on their terms. I want to pause for just a minute and say where I think we really are, because there's a lot of, frenzy going on as they attempt to coronate Kamala Harris, as they attempt to push her over the finish line without us ever seeing her, just seeing what's in the press and what the press says about her. There's no great wave of affection for Kamala Harris. That's not happening. What is happening, I think, is that Democrats who are thinking of sitting out the election because Joe Biden was obviously the walking dead, they are now back in. And so that is why she has closed the gap with Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's ratings have not fallen at all. And that's important because the Democrat votes are all kind of situated in clusters in urban areas where his votes a lot of them seem to be in battleground states. And so that's very important. But this is what's happening. There's no great groundswell of, now suddenly we like Kamala Harris. No one has ever liked Kamala Harris. She's a very unlikable person. Now, on the other side of this, Trump blew the RNC speech. I think we all know this. We don't want to say it, but he blew it for a reason that was very Trumpian and is a flaw in his campaigning, I believe. The guy's an instinctive genius politically, I think, Donald Trump. He's an instinctive genius politically. And so when I say he's doing something wrong politically, I say it with great caution. But he had this beautiful speech about how he was shot and what it was like to be there that I think any human being could identify with. But he loves to be loved, and he knows the base loved him. And he then went off into this rambling base speech, a speech for his base. And the problem is, to win, you got to expand your base, and he doesn't do that. That's his Achilles heel, that what he did with the black journalists, the base loves it, but maybe that's not going to sell as well to what could be a growing black vote for Trump. And so he may alienate them if he doesn't have to toe the line to the left, but he might toe the line in terms of not being rude and just saying what he has to say. These are choices he's going to make, not me. I'm just saying the way it looks to me. That's his Achilles heel. Kamala's Achilles heel is that she's evil, stupid, corrupt, and a communist. And because we're in Bird Box, we behold the news media and we go mad. And that means that it's going to be close because we are both working with our flaws instead of with our strengths. For some, tossing and turning all night is a frustrating experience. For me, it's just nighttime, and that's what it's like. But when I want to get right to sleep, I use Beam. It's great. It's not just your run-of-the-mill sleep aid. It's a concoction carefully crafted to help you ease into the sweet embrace of rest without the grogginess that often accompanies other sleep remedies. Beam Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. I checked out every one of those ingredients, and they do help you fall asleep. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, their best-selling hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. Now available in delicious flavors like cinnamon cocoa, chocolate peanut butter, and mint chip. Better sleep has never tasted better. Just mix Beam Dream into hot water or milk and enjoy before bedtime. If you find yourself battling the bedtime blues, give it a shot. Your weary self will thank you. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, take advantage of 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Klavan and use code Klavan at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Klavan with my promo code Klavan for up to 40% off your order. This stuff really works. So you want to know how to spell Beam, but more importantly, you want to know how to spell Klavan. It's Klavan.
There are no easy things.
All right, Chapter 2, Mean Girls.
Having lunch with the plastics was like leaving the actual world and entering Girl World. And Girl World had a lot of rules.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week. So I guess you picked today. Oh, and we only wear jeans or track pants on Fridays. Now, if you break any of these rules, you can't sit with us at lunch. Well, I mean, not just you, like any of us. Okay, like if I was wearing jeans today, I would be sitting over there with the art freaks. Oh, and we always vote before we ask someone to eat lunch with us because you have to be considerate of the rest of the group. Well, I mean, you wouldn't buy a skirt without asking your friends first if it looks good on you.
I wouldn't.
Right.
Right, so keep those tactics in mind, those popular girl rules. If you want to sit with the popular girls, you got to follow the rules. That's obviously a 2004 movie. They've remade it now. I haven't seen the remake, but that was Mean Girls, a very talented, liberal, unfortunately, Tina Fey, a very, very funny woman and a good writer, writes Mean Girls. Now, last week I talked about the fact that this is a very male-female race. And we're not supposed to talk about that because obviously their male and females are exactly the same. In fact, you can change them out and swap them out. They're so much the same. But here we're not going to lie, so we're going to say this is a male-female race. Trump is a studly guy to the point where he exemplifies both the good and the bad of manhood. He can get a little bit over the top sometimes, and sometimes he just has that incredible courage that he displayed when he was shot at, and when he was shot, actually, I should say, and also when he went before the black journalist, which was not quite as bad, but also dangerous. And Kamala has the womanish traits of being a cackling, irrational, and venomous serpent without the womanly traits of grace, generosity, and tenderness. We miss those in her. But those womanish traits are now in control of our politics. I was talking last week about City Journal's Faye Heimowitz, who's a really good observer of sexual politics. And she was talking about the women who love Hamas, but also talking about the rise of women in politics in general and how it has feminized the way we do our politics. And let me just read a little bit of this. Women's strategies. She's talking about the fact that it's not that women are not competitive and aggressive. It's that because they are smaller and weaker and because their goals are different and their values are different, they have to use different methods than men use, which is usually, I grew up with three brothers. We did nothing but punch each other. My entire childhood was just people flying out through rooms and slugging people. It was like the last reel of a John Wayne movie. Women don't behave that way. And this is what Faye says. She says, women's strategies are frequently more cunning than men's and invisible, not just to their more guileless victims, but even to themselves. They're masters of the covert psyop, social exclusion. Keeping out people whom the in-group deems deplorable is a preferred tactic. Trigger warnings, cancel culture, and deplatforming are imposed to protect the marginalized and oppressed from ideas deemed harmful by the in-group, because they're also very concerned about safety, as women have to be. These serve as ways to ostracize those who don't share in the in-group's convictions. So this is basically the Democrats and the media's strategy all the time. Mean girl strategy, constantly. They have turned us into a mean girl nation with their cancel culture and their trigger warnings and deplatforming, all of which is you can't sit at our table. So there was a Zoom call of white women for Kamala, and it's so offensive that she divides us all into our race, but that's the point. That's what she's trying to do. So a Zoom call of white women for Kamala featured this insanely cringy lecture from an influencer named Ariel Fodor, who is called Mrs. Frazzle. I still can't entirely believe this woman isn't having us on, isn't putting us on, isn't like running some kind of a troll on us, because she is she almost literally makes me cringe. And here she is telling the women what they can and can't say as white women. Cut 14.
As white women, we need to use our privilege to make positive changes. If you find yourself talking over or speaking for BIPOC individuals, or God forbid, correcting them, just take a beat. And instead, we can put our listening ears on. So do learn from and amplify the voices of those who have been historically marginalized, and use the privilege you have in order to push for systemic change. As white people, we have a lot to learn and unlearn. So do check your blind spots.
She forgot to say you can only wear a ponytail once a week. And of course, if you can't wear sweatpants, or you can't sit at our table. But that's basically what she's saying. And anyone who believes, as I do, in non-racism and not being racist or caring about people's race, or who believes in male-female differences, they don't get to sit at the table. New York Magazine attacked me for last week's show for saying, and they said I was part of a GOP freak show for talking about the difference in women's roles and the way society has to parse where women go. And, you know, they did this to J.D. Vance when he talked about childless cat ladies dominating the Democratic Party. Now, I'm sure you've heard about this, the childless cat ladies that Vance doesn't like, and how unacceptable that was. This has been on the front page of the New York Times repeatedly. I'm going to play a very long clip. This is a 2-minute clip, but I want you to hear some of what he actually said talking at ISI, cut 21.
Why have we let the Democrat Party become controlled by people who don't have children? Now, let me do the necessary throat clearing because I do think it's important. Look, a lot of people are unable to have kids for very complicated and important reasons. I know, good friends of mine who have struggled to find the right girl, find the right guy. There are people, of course, for biological reasons, medical reasons, that can't have children. The target of these remarks is not them. It's important to point that out. There have always been people like that who, even though they would like to have kids, unable to have them. Let's set them to the side. It is one thing to recognize that there are people who don't have children. It's one thing to recognize that there are people who don't have children through no fault or choice of their own. What I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it? I just wanted to ask that question and propose that maybe if we want a healthy ruling class in this country, we should invest more, we should vote more, we should support more people who actually have kids, because those are the people who ultimately have a more direct stake in the future of this country.
So, obviously what he's saying is people should have a physical investment like kids in the future if they're going to run countries. This was a big problem in Europe, where for a long time, none of the leaders had children, and they treated Europe as if it had no future. And you can see where Europe has gone, where the continent formerly known as Europe has gone. Now, here's the reaction from the Talking Points Democrats and their media, who are like castrated poodles, just do whatever the Democrats tell them, is cut 13.
Some of what he and his running mate are saying, well, it's just plain weird.
These guys are just weird. That's where they are. As weird and creepy as J.D. Vance. Super weird idea from J.D. Vance.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's quite weird. They're just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
Just plain weird.
That stuff is weird. They come across weird, and then they start being weird. Yeah, they're weird.
Being a really weird.
He's such a weirdo.
Donald Trump and his weirdo running mate are weird. Deeply and profoundly weird. They are weird.
These Republicans just being weird. It's just weird.
This is a, deeply, deeply strange community on the left. But their point is to establish the rules of the popular girl table. And they are the in crowd, and you are sitting outside. That is the whole point. According to Gallup, more Americans, this is 2023 is their last time they did this survey, more Americans say, 38% say they are very conservative or conservative on social issues than said so in 2022 and 2021. It has gone up 8% since 2021 in 2 years. At the same time, the percentage saying their social views are very liberal or liberal has dipped to 29% from 34% in each of the past 2 years, while the portion identifying as moderate remains near a third. So that means almost 40%, and this is growing, are socially conservative. Only 30% are socially liberal. Conservatives are going up, liberals are going down. What they're doing is trying to claim that they're the popular lunch table, but in fact, it's us. So what they're saying is we're the elite lunch table because they can't claim they're popular because they're just not. And this, I'm sorry, but this works well with women who have strong social ties. Women live on social ties. They're very social. They're the social sex of the two sexes, the more social sex. They always tie, you'll listen to wives. They always say, my husband has no friends. What's that about? It's that we're just not as social as they are. We're more individualistic. But then you have the minos, who are men in name only, and here is white dudes for Harris. And first of all, anybody who shows up for white dudes for Harris has got a problem. The racism is really disgusting. Here is a Zoom call, white dudes for Harris, cut 20.
Over the last few years, I've been thinking a lot about men.
I'm not sure if you guys can recall that feeling you had on the night of Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. I stood over my kid's bed and I wept.
In the marginalized communities that educate me every single day, that this is a constant education for all of us.
You've seen it with congressional leaders who have called Vice President Harris a DEI candidate.
Of course, men are also more free in a country where we have a president who stands up for things like access to abortion care.
So it's a bunch of guys who are weeping and being educated by BIPOCs. And of course, men are more free when they can kill the babies they create and just use the women. Of course, they are more free. I got to give Buttigieg points there. And the other thing that men do that is not allowed at the popular girls' table is tell the truth when we say that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, because that's exactly what she is. Remember, candidate Joe Biden said this is cut 16.
I committed that if I'm elected president and have an opportunity to appoint someone to the courts, I'll appoint the first black woman to the courts. It's required that they have representation now. It's long overdue. Secondly, if I'm elected president, my cabinet, my administration will look like the country. And I commit that I will, in fact, I'll pick a woman to be vice president.
So she's a literal DEI hire. And here's the other thing. Sebastian Gorka said this to me on his show the other day. That was supposed to be a good thing. You know, it was supposed to be good to show children gay porn. So why can't you read it out loud when you go to a PTA meeting? If left-wing policies are good, why does the New York Times have to convince us that Kamala doesn't have left-wing policies? That's just the right, pouncing on her actual policies. The popular table are really the shallow, nasty, mean-spirited girls. They're the mean girls. They are the mean girls. And they have to keep a pretense of glamour and beauty and keep up a facade that they are popular and are governing the values of the school. And they have a elitism and a panache that they don't really have. And that's why they use words like controversial or weird to mean true. Whenever somebody says this controversial comment, it usually is just a comment that we all think is true. Men and women are different. Women are like this, men are like this. Oh, a controversial comment, that just means true, because one of the things they like to do is lie. But remember Bird Box, right? We become what we behold. We start to play the same games as they do instead of doing actually what Trump does, which is rewrite the rules. My Helix mattress isn't just a piece of furniture. It's a cocoon of comfort that cradles me as I lie awake all night. Helix harnesses years of mattress expertise to offer a truly elevated lying awake experience. You may want it to fall asleep because it's so comfortable. I use it to lie awake, and it's just even more comfortable because I get the full Helix experience. The Helix Elite Collection includes 6 different mattress models, each tailored for specific sleep positions and firmness preferences. If you're nervous about buying a mattress online, you don't have to be. Helix has a sleep quiz that matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress, because why would you buy a mattress made for someone else? I took the Helix quiz, and I was matched with a firm but breathable mattress, which makes me feel comfortable as I am lying awake all night. I know the comfort. You have to just sleep through it. Helix has a 10-year warranty, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you're going to, because you'll be asleep so quick and so comfortably. Helix's financing options and flexible payment plans ensure that a great night's sleep is never far away. For a limited time, Helix is offering 30% off Luxe and Elite mattress models, or take 25% off site-wide. Each mattress order comes with 2 free Dream pillows. That's a $150 value. Just go to helixsleep.com/Klavan. The sale won't last long. helixsleep.com/Klavan. With Helix, better sleep starts now, or better lying awake for KLAVAN. Which brings me to Chapter 3, Serpico.
If they would take all that energy, put it into straight police work, we'd have the city cleaned up in a week. If they clean up, there'd be no crime. If I could work alone, that's the thing, see? If I could just get work alone. But they don't like that, see? They don't want that. They want to suck you in.
You go over the same thing, Paco.
So corrupt, everybody, everyone, nobody giving a shit. There's got to be a way to wipe it out.
So that's 1973. If you've never seen Serpico, by the way, people don't watch it anymore. It's a terrific movie. It's Al Pacino's, one of Al Pacino's greatest parts. Sidney Lumet, a forgotten but terrific director. And it's based on a true story, happened in the 70s, about an honest undercover cop in an NYPD that had just gone bad. It was just like filled with people taking money, with cops, systemically, department-wide, the cops were taking money from criminals to do what the criminals want and let certain people go. The corruption was very deep. And Serpico is a flawed character. He's a character, you can see him, his girlfriend is just fed up with him. She's a beautiful, loving girl, and she just can't stand it anymore because the pressure is killing him. But he doesn't threaten to expose the corruption. He just asks to be left out of it. He does not want to take the money. When he starts out, he says, I'm not ratting on anybody. I'm not turning anybody in. Just do not give me the money. That's too much. And that is something about the way evil works in the world, is people not only want to be evil, they want to make sure you don't say that they're evil. This is why they won't let you come into PTA meetings and read the porn that they're putting in schools. They want to be evil, but they don't want you to see that they're evil, and they don't want you to be moral, because that is, in fact, a threat to them and an insult to them, and it makes them see what they are, and they don't want to see what they are. So just the fact that Serpico does not participate, he's a flawed character, he's got a lot of problems, but just the fact that he will not participate in the corruption makes it so that they hate him and feel he's a threat. But here's the thing. They don't kill him. They just don't come to his aid. And of course, police officers, especially undercover police officers, come into danger all the time. And when he calls for help, they hang back. And that's how they get him. That is how they go after him. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to threaten him. They don't have to kill him. They don't have to shoot him. They don't have to poison him. They just don't show up. So Congress has brought in the acting Secret Service head, Ronald Rowe Jr., and to discuss the attempted assassination on Donald Trump and the fact that nobody was there to protect them, that people were not there in the places where they should have been, especially the roof where the sniper was. So Rowe Jr. has been a Secret Service man for a long time. He's been in law enforcement for a long time. And to his credit, he admits that the security was shameful. He visited the roof that was too sloped for the Secret Service people to be on it. And this is what he said. This is cut 22.
Director was traveling to the Butler Farm Show site to better understand how our protection failed. I went to the roof of the AGR building where the assailant fired shots, and I laid in a prone position to evaluate his line of sight. What I saw made me ashamed. As a career law enforcement officer and a 25-year veteran with the Secret Service, I cannot defend why that roof was not better secured.
Now, there are questions about how much Rowe was involved in repeatedly denying the Trump camp's request for more security. That was kind of the subject of the hearing. And Senator Ted Cruz, God love him, my political spirit animal, asked why these repeated requests for more security were denied. And as Ted Cruz spoke out about what he thought, Rowe started to get agitated. It's cut 23.
I believe that the Secret Service leadership made a political decision to deny these requests. And I think the Biden administration has been suffused with partisan politics. Did the same person who denied the request for additional security to President Trump also repeatedly deny the request for security to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose father was murdered by an assassin and whose uncle was murdered by an assassin? Did the same person make that decision?
Senator, what I will tell you is that Secret Service agents are not political.
Okay, you're not answering my question. But you know what? Leadership appointed by the president, leadership appointed by the president is political. I have a simple question, yes or no. Did the same person deny the Trump request that also denied the RFK request? That's a yes or no question.
Senator, that is not a yes or no question. One, there is a process for a candidate nominee to receive protection.
Does the buck stop anywhere? Does the buck stop anywhere?
Does the buck stop anywhere? Well, right. See, the thing is, some of us remember Benghazi because we're in Bird Box and we become what we behold. One of the things that the news media wants us to do is forget. They want us to forget things that happened before so they can just reinvent the world every minute. But we remember Benghazi, 2012, if you've never seen, I think it's called 13 Hours, there's a good film about it. Islamic terrorists attacked our facilities in Benghazi, and 4 Americans died, including the ambassador there, Christopher Stevens, and the information officer, Sean Smith, and 2 CIA operatives who were calling for help. They were both former Navy SEALs, and they were both desperate to bring in help, but the help never came. And that's where Hillary Clinton stood in front of their coffins and lied about the cause of the attack, which was Islamist terrorism, was the cause of the attack. And they blamed it on some small filmmaker who had made some insulting anti-Islamic video. And he was hauled out of his rooms in the middle of the night with a mask over him. He was arrested. He had nothing to do with it. And she stood and lied. And when they asked her about this, she said, what difference does it make how they die? What difference does it make? And the fact is, she never, I think it really kind of, if anything, helped end her, she was Secretary of State then, if anything helped end her presidential hopes, it might have been that, at least in part. The Democrat Party, who jails their opponents, they cheat on elections, there's no question about that, whose media is an empire of lies that is in favor of the governors and not the governed. These people are corrupt. This is a corrupt party. The Democrat Party is corrupt. The Republican Party is stupid, but the Democrat Party is evil and corrupt. And the thing is about Trump is not that Trump is perfect and not that he's radical. He's not radical. He's far to the left of me. He's a moderate. He's right there in the middle. Many of his policies are moderate. And it's just the fact that he won't, like Serpico, he won't take the money. He will not buy in to the lies that you're a racist if you say something about Kamala Harris's being a DEI hire. You're suddenly a racist, which is just the truth, right? That you're sexist if you talk about the differences between men and women. He won't buy into these lies, and I'm going to talk about this in the final chapter. He will not buy into these lies. And like Serpico, he won't take the money. They don't have to kill him. They don't have to kill him, but when they call for help, when he calls for help, they don't show up. That scene in Serpico, which is a horrific scene, where they leave Serpico out, in the lurch because they just want to silence him, has been on my mind ever since July 13th and that attack on Trump. That scene has been just haunting me because it's the same damn thing. It's not that they're conspiring to kill him. It's certainly not that the agents in place were conspiring to kill him. It's just the fact that they don't show up for you, and they do it on purpose. They did it for the same reason they didn't do it in Libya, because they were dealing with the Iranians and they didn't want to insult the Muslims. It's just the corruption is so deep in this party, and it's deep. It may not even be money corruption in every case. With Joe Biden, he's on the take, but not everybody is on the take. They're just corrupted by lies. They're corrupted by a philosophy, this woke philosophy that does not tell the truth. And so if you stand up to that philosophy, you just don't buy into that philosophy, you're a danger to them. And when you call for help, they don't show up. Men. Have you heard of Rose Sparks? This dual action prescription merges the powerhouse ingredients found in generic Viagra and Cialis, sildenafil and tadalafil into one formidable treatment. But it's not merely about the ingredients in the medication, it's how you take it. That's why Rose Sparks are designed to dissolve under your tongue. That's huge because dissolvable treatment hits your bloodstream faster than old school pills. Rose Sparks keeps you present with your partner instead of waiting for a pill to work. Rose Sparks leverages the benefits of sublingual administration, which means the tablet dissolves under your tongue. This method allows for fast absorption directly into the bloodstream, bypassing the digestive system. The result is you get a quicker onset of action, reducing the wait time typically associated with traditional pills. Plus, tadalafil, which is the active ingredient in Cialis, lasts in the system for up to 36 hours. So when the mood is right, you'll be ready without another dose. For treatment that works fast, lasts long, connect with a provider at ro.co/Klavan to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you. ro.co/KLAVAN. Again, that's ro.co/Klavan. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Only available if prescribed after an online consultation with a provider. Final chapter, A Quiet Place. Now, I want to speak more seriously about this Last Supper thing, the drag queen Last Supper at the opening of the Olympics. I was kidding around about it in the opening satire. And just before I do, I want to tell you that on our Substack, the Substack I do with my son Spencer Klavan, no relation, every month we write an essay that begins the month-long conversation that we're having about God in the modern world, about how to talk about God in the modern world. And Spencer, we're going to put it up Saturday morning. And Spencer's essay is on the Last Supper and this display. And it's just brilliant because he knows so much about art and about the classical world and its relationship to the Last Supper. It's really worth reading. It's the New Jerusalem.substack.com, the New Jerusalem.substack.com. Now, I'm not playing a clip from A Quiet Place because it's an almost silent movie, and most people listen to the show, they don't watch it. So it's almost silent movie. And it's also almost exactly the same story as Bird Box. And it was a much better movie than Bird Box. It was one of the best scary movies. It's probably the best scary movie I've seen in the last 10 years, suspense movie, whatever you want to call it. And it's almost the same story, except instead of something that you can't look in Bird Box, you can't speak in A Quiet Place, because if you speak, the monsters hear you. They're just nothing but a great big ears and teeth, and they will come and eat you. It's almost the same film. And of course, not being able to speak is the central technique of the left, to silence you on social media, to silence you with ridicule, to silence you by calling you into HR and threatening your job. Google and Facebook manipulating their search engines so that you can't find a picture of Trump after he was shot raising his fist, so that when you search for Trump, Kamala turns up. They are trying to silence the voices who disagree with them. Be silent, or they will come and devour you. And the reason is this. Not everything the left says is wrong. In fact, they piggyback their leftism on things that are true. It wouldn't work if they didn't do this. I want Americans of every single color to thrive. I think I can say that I do not think about people's color when I'm talking to them. I just want to know what they can do. But there's trouble in poor black neighborhoods, and it's not the fault of white people. It's the fault of the culture that has grown up in the aftermath of the Great Society, the Democrat programs of the 1960s. And it's all about the leftism. What they have done is they have taken our desire to be open to all races, because black people were incredibly mistreated, and they have turned that into what? Into this racism, this DEI racism, that you should hire somebody because of the color of his skin, instead of fixing the Great Society or getting rid of the Great Society, which would cost them money and take away their power. No, we should now become racist ourselves. There's violence in Islam. I'm a devout Christian, but I'm not the church police. I'm not here to tell people how to pray. I believe in, people who are Muslims, who are good, wonderful, pious people. These are things that friends talk about to one another, but they have made it so you cannot say the fact that the people who just got killed in England, for instance, are killed by a Muslim. There's violence in the Muslim community. They have to address it. We have to address it because it comes after us. The role of women in society is incredibly complex, much more complex than either feminism or like trad wife stuff. And we have to talk about it, but you can't do that. And it suddenly becomes, about there not being any women at all. Right? It becomes, now you can't say there are women. Men and women can be swapped out for men. So it's always the leftism. It's always about the leftism. It's not about women. They're not doing anything for black people. They're not doing anything for women. They're not doing anything for anybody. It's all about the leftism. Gay activists in this country, ever since Obergefell, a terrible decision, are doing something wicked. They're doing something evil, queering children and corrupting art and peddling pornography to children. But there's also a gay community that I know about because I'm in the arts, of decent, creative people who are in terrible pain because their parents have rejected them and their churches rejected them. And I'm sorry, but I don't think I serve Christ by hating them or troubling them in any way. I'm a heteronormative. I believe in heteronormativism, right? Just like, cultural appropriation, they use that as a slur, but I think it's a good thing. Heteronormativity is a good thing. And I said that last week that one way to look at societal organization is as a means of distributing women, and that's one way of looking at society, not the only way. And that was attacked by Media Matters and New York Magazine as controversial, which is leftist for true. That is what it means. But screw them, right? I'm not going to have my opinions simplified because that suits the media in their fight to install leftism in our government and destroy our freedoms. Life is complex. morality is complex, and if they want to isolate sentences that I say and make me sound weird, a freak, that I can't sit at their table, their elite table, let me tell them something. I'm already sitting at the art freak table. They can kiss my ass. I don't care what table I sit in. Now, the movies we started and ended with, Bird Box and Quiet Place, both of these are apocalyptic movies, and both of them are about mothers. Sandra Bullock is a brave mother who has to be mean to her kids to make sure they survive the journey, and Emily Blunt has to give birth with these monsters prowling around in what I think is one of the best movie scenes of the last couple of decades. It was one of the scariest things I have ever seen, and I was twisted up like a pretzel. And the reason it's about moms is because without moms, the apocalypse is now, right? That's the end of the world right there. The creation of life is our central gift, and it's also our central responsibility. And I think it is done in its most healthy and normal and productive and freedom-protecting way by a man and a woman in a sacramental lifelong marriage. I think that is the best way for us to create the new life that is our central task and our central responsibility. Now, nobody knows if Leonardo da Vinci was gay, but I think he was gay. I suspect he was. He was always surrounded by young men, and a lot of the Renaissance artists who did some of the greatest Christian art of all time were, in fact, gay. And the fact is, I'm an artist, and art requires that you have at least gone through a period of brokenness. You have to have something broken in you to be an artist, and you have to be excluded in some way. Gay people, Jews, blacks, excluded people crowd the arts because they can see society from the outside because they've been kept out, and it gives them an objectivity that helps them create a good picture of society. Leonardo's Last Supper is as beautiful a work of Christian art as exists, a fresco. It's the moment when Jesus teaches his followers about communion, to eat the bread and wine, right? It's the ritual by which we teach our bodies that matter is spirit. Bread and wine are the body and blood of Christ. That is why you take communion, because it teaches you slowly, over slow time, that there's no daylight between matter and spirit. They are all one thing. And this is also true of heterosexual marriage, right? In the production of children, men and women represent the female and male images of God, not just physically, but in the parenting work they do and the different roles that fathers and mothers play. It teaches children how to know God if you do it right, because we represent God. And that's our responsibility. That's what we're here to do. And God loved Leonardo and all the gay people, right? These things that are different are not the same. I believe in heteronormativity because that's how life is made. And the left ruins everything. They ruin everything. We want to be accepting. I want to be accepting. I like living in a multi-ethnic country. I like gay people. They do incredibly creative work. If you're in the arts, you gotta love them. You know, I want blacks to be equal, but I will not accept this racism this racism that they put out. I want women to make their own choices, so help me I do, but they have turned that into attacking marriage and motherhood and homemaking, which is the core of human existence. And when gays want to live and be left the hell alone, I am to work out their salvation in fear and trembling like all the rest of us. I am absolutely for that. But the house of freedom rests on the shoulders of heteronormative families. And when the left uses gays to tear that house down, they force us to fight back because they're not doing it for gays. They're doing it for the power. That's why it always turns into the opposite of itself. You know, we were talking about the New Jerusalem, where I hope you will go, thenewjerusalem.substack.com, and I hope you'll read Spencer's essay about the Last Supper. But I wrote a letter there just the other day talking about beauty and talking about how beauty at its most essential has no meaning. When you see something beautiful, you don't have to say what it means. It just is. It is that it is, which is God's name. And I point out, you know, God says, I am that I am. And I point out that beauty is an expression of God. It's God's expression of himself. And the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in my life were the births of my two children, my beloved Faith and my beloved Spencer, no relation. And there's an old expression that's attributed to St. Augustine. I'm only allowed to say it in Latin. My Latin pronunciation is not that good, but it's inter facies et urinam nescimer. Okay, and it means that we are born between crap and piss. That's what it means, right? And if you think about it, obviously, that is literally the case. We are born between those places in a woman that produce those things. And when you are watching a baby being born, you are seeing all this matter that we usually think of as disgusting, as waste matter. You're seeing all this matter pour out, and then suddenly in the midst of it, there's life. There's life. It is communion played out in real life. It is matter producing spirit and life. And that's holy. That is holy. And it is sad, I think, that gay people can't participate in that. But it is the most holy thing. And we are not to hate people who don't participate in it, whether they can't have children or don't want to have children or are gay and are not in those relationships that produce children. We don't hate those people. They are part of the madcap, hilarious creation of the world. This is the thing that I reject about religion, the idea that God made things just right and everything is going to fall in place. It's all going to look like the 1950s. The world is a crazy creation, is a crazy, madcap, hilarious place. It includes gay people. It includes eccentrics. It includes me, who's not a normal person, who's not doing a normal job, right? It includes all these things that I think we're supposed to love. But it is also a hierarchical creation in which certain things are closer to the center than others. And to destroy that is to destroy everything. And they're not doing it to help gay people. They are doing it for leftism. Just like feminism is just taken over by leftism, racialism is taken over by leftism, and gay rights have been taken over by leftism. I am not hating on any of those people ever, black people or women or gay people, or wanting to deprive them of their choices. It's the leftism I'm after, and it has to be stopped because it is against everything, and it turns everything it touches to crap. Leftism ruins everything and has to be stopped. Brace yourselves, America. The DailyWire is about to release its very first theatrical film, and it's going to be a rude awakening for the rude woke. Am I Racist isn't just a movie, it's a full frontal assault on the DEI industrial complex that's infecting our nation. Matt Walsh went undercover in the belly of the beast, surrounded by professional race baiters and diversity grifters. The white guys who brought you What is a Woman are now asking the question that makes liberals break out in hives: Am I Racist? Pre-sale tickets are available August 14th. Mark your calendars or risk being labeled a racist by default. Watch the trailer now at amiracist.com. Get a taste of the madness. The trailer is great. If the movie is half as good as that trailer, it is going to be a smash. Don't miss it. All right, Klavan Klapbacks.
I didn't know she was black.
Exactly. All right. The letter today, I probably only get to one because it's such an interesting letter. It's from a guy named Chris. I think it's a guy, maybe not. It says K-R-I-S. It says, how can you go on your long rants about how God is in control of everything, orchestrating who lives, who dies, being outside of time, all powerful, and then make the disconnected statement about men and women? That's how evolution designed us. I've been listening to you and Ben do this for years, and it's maddening. Why do you keep believing, promoting evolutionary nonsense while simultaneously believing, promoting God? There is no evidence that Darwinian evolution happened, could happen, or will ever happen, no matter how much theoretical time you assign to its illogical fantasy. Now, this letter goes on, and I will get to the rest of it in just a minute. But let me start with that. I don't think that there's anyone who denies evolution within species, which is specifically what I was talking about. And I see, first of all, I don't go on long rants about how God is orchestrating who lives and who dies. That's not the way I think the world works. I've written about this extensively. I can't talk about it now, but that's not the way I think the world works. We're not on a chessboard. There's free will and all these things. However, I don't think anybody who pays attention doesn't believe in evolution within a species, because we can see it. We can see that moths, for instance, if the forest grows darker because of soot, the moths grow darker so they can hide from the predators. They evolve. The moths who survive evolve, so maybe there's ways that system works that we don't know about. The questions arise whether one species can evolve into another, and there are very serious questions about that idea that scientists are going to solve, not me, because I'm not a scientist. And there is absolutely nothing to say that God does not work. I mean, we know God works through material means to achieve his ends, and he works matter is the clay he uses to make things. So I don't understand why you think that that's offensive to the idea of God. It's just not. I mean, I can understand why some people feel it's offensive. It's not for me to tell God how he does things, It seems, by observation, I think everybody believes this. There's no one, even religious people, understand the species evolved and that they have certain pressures. What becomes silly, as I was saying to Jonathan Haidt, who talks about this and is an atheist, is it seems to me that they always evolve because of stimulus, and the idea that we have evolved a moral sense, but there's no real morality seems ridiculous to me. But, however, I think everybody believes in evolution within a species. Now, the rest of this letter goes on. For those who want to take Genesis and morph it into an allegory instead of taking it to mean what it plainly says, the real problem is in Genesis, it's Exodus 20, where God told Moses that he really did make everything in 6 days. Now, this is something I want to take on because I get a lot of letters like this. Through the centuries, many people of deep faith, including St. Augustine, have read the Bible in different ways. And I read it differently than other people I know. And I'll write about that at some point, how I read the Bible. But it doesn't mean they don't have faith, and it doesn't mean that they don't understand the Bible. There are different ways the text can be read. Text can't be read in any way, in just any way you want. But there are always, gray areas. The language is a rude tool that we use to communicate, and there are gaps in those communications. So, for instance, we know God speaks in allegories because Jesus speaks in parables. So we know that not everything God says is to be taken literally. When God says there was a man who had 2 sons and one of them asked for his inheritance and went off and became the prodigal son, he doesn't mean that there was a man who had 2 sons. He's telling a story. So there is absolute justification, and many, many faithful people have done this through time for reading Genesis, written by people who weren't there at the creation of the world, as, in fact, some kind of mythic truth. I think it's one of the most true things ever written. I think there is more truth in Genesis than in almost anything, almost any other piece of writing ever written. However, I don't think that there was a talking snake. Now, you can think that's fine, but I think that those are 2 ways of having faith. And what I object to is not that you believe what you believe, but that you assume that what I believe is absolutely to be dismissed and should make you angry. It shouldn't make you angry. This is the way I'm working out my salvation, in fear and trembling, understanding the Bible, which I believe is the Word of God, and infallible and inerrant in a certain way. But I don't believe that any language can be taken literally, or else when Jesus says, feed my sheep, Peter would have run off to the sheep goat and fed the sheep. He didn't take it literally because language doesn't work that way. So it's just the anger I'm objecting to here. It's not your opinion or your beliefs. It's simply the anger. I think that religious people should learn to listen to those who have faith and yet differ in opinions. That's going to happen because we're all individuals. All right, we got to go to member block, which means those of you who are not members are going to be plunged into a Klavanless darkness that I can't even begin to describe, because my words would just turn to darkness in front of it and I would vanish and you would be suffering terribly. So become a member today. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe. Use code Klavan at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Those of you who have not done this cannot sit at our table because our table is in member block.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gonna say I'm racist. Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of shit.
White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist? Hi, Robin.
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
In theaters September 13th, rated PG-13.